Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, all. This is John Bishop, and I am here with my dear friend, Dr. Nancy Flournoy. I got to know Aunt Nancy because Nancy was actually on the board of the Northwest Ballet Theater that I ran for 21 years until pandemic kind of came along, and we decided we couldn't continue with that. So but during the time that Nancy was on the board, she was a big supporter. And then Nancy, what happened after that? So I'm going to turn that over.
I saw John, and I hadn't seen John and Mieko for the whole summer, and I saw him walking down the street, and I was just stunned by how much younger they looked. And so it was just a few minutes. We got to talking about the pain my husband had in his hands for 2 years running, and nobody had been able to do anything or diagnose anything. And John had us both signed up in no time, and tried the round the clock thing with his the ice wave, and in 30 seconds the pain was gone, and that was the beginning. So that was my introduction to Lifewave. I will say that I'm very happy today because I just turned 75. And you may notice, yeah, you may notice, depending on which way I look, I have it looks like a scar, but this is actually part of a big detox process I went through last fall, where a diving accident that I'd had when I was 10 years old had left my bones all in different places. Anyway, this big release of the bones and this big blob of whatever it is came out of out of my bones. Anyway, people that take Lifewave products are supposed to have these nice clean faces, and mine is now cleaning up from that. But if you look real carefully, it makes an absolutely sharp right angle, which is the exact imprint of the diving board that I hit when I was 10 years old. So I'll just say that in case people are wondering what's going on. Okay, so now I want to begin my talk. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, now, so tonight we're talking about the Silent Night patch. I'm a professor emerita from the University of Missouri. I've spent my life, my expertise is in biostatistics, clinical trials research. That is the statistical methods for clinical trials. So I've been in and around science for a long time. And one of the things that's really been fun about getting to know the Lifewave products is doing the research, reading all of the papers that are in the science section on the Lifewave website, and then also studying, when David Schmidt, the CEO, would drop hints, I'd go and study what the biochemistry was and the biology and the physics around how the patches were going to work. So as I say, we go through each of these patches, and tonight we're talking about the Lifewave patch. So I'll just say that Lifewave has a lot of patches, and I did an overview talk in January, and you can find that talk and some of the others that I've done on my YouTube channel, which I think you can find if you type in my name. And I have a website called lightpatchscience.com, and I did send Lifewave email saying I had this website and I had any problems with it, to let me know, and I never heard from them. So I hope the website is agreeable, informative, and entertaining for anyone who visits there. Now, let's just start by talking about the problems with sleep, or actually with not getting sleep. And one of the problems is that most Americans aren't sleeping anywhere near the amount that we used to. And so this is a problem. Insomnia is a problem. If you look down in the lower left-hand corner of this slide, it lists some of the things which are probably well known, that if you don't get enough sleep, your mood's going to be gone, downhill, and you're going to be having more accidents, more family problems, and it can lead to a lot of different diseases because your body doesn't have the time to heal that it needs. And there's also a time element to sleep. That is, the body wants to sleep when it's dark. And if you are working on a shift that is not during the day, then the later that shift gets into the night, the more likely you are to be sick. So, we're going to talk a little bit. So the talk's divided into 3 parts. We'll talk a little bit about the patch itself, and that's particularly the case because with the Sleepy Nights patch, there's more information about this patch than I've found about from any of the other patches. So there's some interesting information that is different from the others. And then we'll talk about one of David's talks, David Schmidt, the CEO, he said that the Sleepy Nights patch, I believe he said it was designed to increase the hormone melatonin. Now, we'll be looking at some of the wording specifically, and in particular, one of the things we'll look at is this word "the," that is, just because he says it increases melatonin doesn't mean it doesn't do a lot of other things too. So we'll investigate that a little bit. But the patches in general are designed to influence specific photoreceptors in the body. This is from a 2009 paper by some collaborators, Thomas and Helen Baginski, who have done research for the Lifewave patches. So the materials photonetically reflect certain frequencies of the cells being targeted. And the aim is to increase some product of metabolism. And in this case, in this talk, and because of David's comment, we'll focus on melatonin. But I want to take a little, we're going to take a little bit of objection to this word reflect. So the idea is you got the patch on, it's a crystal, and when you think of the heat coming off your body and hitting the crystal, and then the word reflect implies that that's being bounced back into your body. And we're gonna break that down just a little bit. So the patches are crystals. And if you look at this little picture on the left, the tan box is, or the little brown box is an image of a crystal with the electrical charges at the top being, every positive charge has a negative charge right next to it, and they're lined up on the top and the bottom. And so here the crystal's not doing anything. There's no charge going anywhere. But if you apply physical force, then all the positive charges go to one side and all the negative charges go to the other side, and all of a sudden you're generating electricity. And that could be physical force, or it can be force, if you look up a little bit, it could be force from electricity. So in this scheme with the candle, you see the light, which could be the heat from your body, and the little battery here, think of the crystal. So the heat from your body lights, heats up the crystal, and then you have this same kind of separation of the positive charges and the negative charges, and you're getting electricity. So the patches are crystals, and they can store it here when you have the negative charge. So if you got your patches in the drawer and they're not near any heat source. They're just sitting there. And when you put them on near your body where they can feel your heat, your own body heat, then they go into action. So the frequencies that we're talking about being effective here are just really low nanometers. And the reason that, well, so when they say reflect, so there's one thing here is that the material in the crystal, well, let's look at the next slide with respect to this question of whether they're reflecting. In the science that's in the Lifewave, on the Lifewave website, there's a paper by Melinda Connor, Dr. Connor, from 2013. And in that paper, she uses this word, she talks about Silent Night's formulary. So, and then she makes this long list of things that are homeopathic solutions. And so you say, okay, well, formulary, that means that's what the crystal's made of as far as I can figure out. And if it's really made of a mixture of homeopathic solutions, then that's really interesting. And so I went to the web, and I'm no expert on homeopathic solutions, but I looked up just what I could find, single words for what these different homeopathic solutions would do. And for example, we have arsenious acid is used for insomnia linked with anxiety. And you'll see for all of these, they have something to do with, you know, if they were effective, they would help you sleep. And so this is one of the questions I have about melatonin. That is, if this is what the crystals are made of, are they all somehow affecting the production of melatonin, or is melatonin just one of the things that's getting affected by this large variety of different compounds? And there was another thing in Dr. Connor's paper that I was delighted to see, and that is a batch of citations about the about the science that's been done with homeopathies. And I know, I don't know, 15 years ago or so, I read a paper by some Italians that they were calling it microdosing, because they didn't want to call it homeopathy, I guess. They call it microdosing. And it was a physics paper looking at how actually establishing that the homeopathic solution retained the physical wavelength of the material that was made into solution, even though it didn't have a molecule. And I haven't been able to find that paper again. And so I was delighted to find a collection of references in this paper of Melinda Connor's. And in particular, there were two here from '94 and then 2007 that where particularly the one in 2007, they've got some devices now, some microscopic type devices that can look at things much smaller, much more nanoparticle like than previously. And they have actually found things in the solution that weren't appreciated before. That's little bits of nanoparticles of metals and other pieces of the molecule.
This is the thing that pressed.
Excuse me. So anyway, one of the things that I like, that I'm very happy to be able to do when I talk about homeopathics, is to be able to point to some science, because there are a lot of people, particular in the medical communities in the United States, that sort of have a blind eye towards that. Whereas, of course, in Europe, you can go into any pharmaceutical, any drugstore and get a homeopathic solution. So a couple things that are established by research that's been done is that the crystals will increase the electrical conductivity of acupuncture points. And that's another place where it's nice to have a list of references that in fact will document that that energy is sucked up by the whirling vertices or vortex of energy that is at an acupuncture point, and things will be sucked in there and then distributed kind of like a superhighway system through the meridian system. And David often, so David Schmidt will mention the acupuncture points a lot, and recommends that the patches be placed on the points often, because in fact that does aid their distribution, the electrical distribution. But he also talks about the electrical conductivity through connective tissue, and there's research supporting that that collagen, just below your outer skin level, will actually function like almost like the crystals, and energy can be transmitted through them. Because remember, we're going to get this signal from the patch, and it's put on your skin, and if it's going to increase melatonin in particular, it's got to get from that point to your brain somehow to be effective. So melatonin is a hormone. So let's just remind ourselves what a hormone is. So the hormone is actually a chemical messenger, and it's going to chemical messengers, they go around telling your body what to do. And in particular, they coordinate your organs so that things are working together. Hormones are produced by glands. These are glands that are lit up in the picture of this little person here. And you have adrenal glands, and you have glands kind of spread all through your body. Melatonin is produced in the pituitary gland, so we'll see that in a minute. Hormones in general are distributed through your blood vessels, and here you see all the little hormones coming out of a gland that is secreting it, and they dump into your blood system, and then go out and find some cell that they want to attach to, and they will link onto it. So melatonin, as I said, is secreted by the pineal gland. And in normal circumstances, it does that at night. So the pineal gland, Rene Descartes called it the seat of the soul. And it turns out that this gland right above the brain stem in the middle of the brain, its main function is to take light and to interpret whether it is light or dark, and then convey that information for the production of melatonin. And so there's two things. Here's the pineal gland, and then here's this little spot in the brain called SCN, which has a long name, which is spelled out over on the upper right-hand corner, but everybody calls it SCN. So the light hits this little place called SCN, and it activates a reaction that actually blocks the production of melatonin. So So melatonin is naturally produced. And when the sun comes up and you open the window, it shuts off that production system. And so the effect of melatonin on sleep is intimately related to whether it's day or night and what is happening with your biological clock and the daily rhythm. So here's a little schematic of serotonin and melatonin. Serotonin's a happy drug. And so you can eat a lot of foods, eggs, oat bran, crab, tuna, some cheeses, but a lot of food goes down into your stomach, gets digested. You need a bunch of B vitamins. And then it goes through a series of steps, a couple steps. And this is all in the pineal gland. You make the serotonin and you make the melatonin. And here's a little picture of what the melatonin looks like over here on the left. Here's the pineal gland, and the melatonin comes out of it directly. It's like broadcast out and dumped right into your blood system, and also into the central spinal fluid. But the point is, it's not stored. It's not like you keep any around. So it's only got a half-life of about 40 minutes in men, in man, women and men, humans. So, you know, that's kind of the lag time in. You wake up, you're a little sleepy. You know, it takes you a little while for the melatonin to go away. You wake up with the light in your eyes, and then it will go away. Another point is that it goes freely across your cell membranes and in and out of the nucleus. So it's a tiny, tiny little molecule. And then when it's time to get rid of it, it's metabolized in the liver. So that's another reason, of course, you need to sleep, is because that's when your liver does most of the cleanup work and works heavily for you. And if you're not getting your sleep, your body's piling up with garbage. So the melatonin's going out and it's looking for cells that have these little receptors on it, the little lock key thing that they're going to connect to. And receptors have been found in the brain, the immune system, the gonads, the kidneys, and the cardiovascular system. And it's still being heavily researched, so the list could get longer. So in the brain, we see that it has receptors for melatonin in this little piece of the brain called the SCN. And it is in the SCN that we have the genes, the genetic component that makes our daily clock run. And so, so there's a word down here that I had to look up. It's central clock, independent of the SCN, can be entrained by food availability, temperature variations, forced activity, etc. So what's the word entrained mean? Well, so we've got things going up and down on a daily basis, and entrained means that they start working together, they synchronize. And of course, this goes back with the definition of what was the statement that the melatonin coordinates the organs. And so you're getting things synchronized on this daily clock basis. Now, let's look at what happens with age. So on the y-axis here, we have melatonin, and it increases, it peaks before puberty. By the time you hit puberty, it's already on the way down, and then it declines. I mean, it went up fast, but it's not declining all that slowly. And I have another graph that shows the x-axis on the next slide. But you can see that by the time, I'm 75, so I'm down in this range with what looks like nothing. So it turns out, of course, that it's not just melatonin that decreases with age, it's all the hormones. And this slide shows you several of them. The one here that peaks early, that's melatonin and drops off. And in this graph, it actually goes down to 0, whereas the other one cut it off where melatonin stopped. So we see one here that is actually worse. And it is in terms of being lower when you're older, and that's estrogen. So estrogen's pretty well gone. One needs to pay attention to all the hormones, and you certainly want them to be synchronized and working well together. Now, this slide tells you about melatonin over the course of the day. And so it starts, so here we start at 12 noon. And as the day wears on, the melatonin production increases, peaks in the middle of the night, goes up more slowly than it drops down pretty quickly in the morning, and then is down to your daily level. So it's thought that the melatonin secretion actually regulates the circadian rhythm. And by that, we mean all the activity of the organs that are happening on a 24-hour basis. And that they're doing this not by promoting the sleep activity, but by inhibiting things that would get in the way of the clock that's in this SCN part of the brain. Now, just to look at essentially the same graph, but in a different perspective, we have the dark green here is melatonin now going up at night, and then up at night and down during the day. This clock goes from about 2 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And then going the other direction is cortisol, which is your flight or flight hormone. And it's, it's what you want to get up and get you boosted and going for the day. And so it shows how they go in alternating time period. And also with the sun and the moon here, sort of to emphasize that I live in Bellingham, and in Bellingham, our days are certainly longer than more than 12 hours now. And as the day gets longer, it'll be such that, it'll be light at 4 o'clock in the morning, it'll be light till after 10, not too long from now. And I had to learn when I moved up here that you have to be willing to go to bed when it gets while it's still light, or else you end up totally sleep deprived, and it isn't very nice. So I think I have this written on the next slide. No, I don't. Okay. So a lot of the research that one runs into when one's trying to follow up on leads that David Schmidt gives is physics literature and biophysics literature as opposed to medical literature. And so this search took me here to finding this reference to the circadian clock, which called it a biochemical oscillator. So I liked that reference because it brings us, it's more the physics reference, and it's more the vibrating nature of electricity and of the biophysical part of the human body as opposed to the chemical part of the human body. So this is a slide that I used when I talked about the Eon patch, and it'll come up here in this context. Well, in particular, one of the things that is shown in the research on the on the Sleepy Nights patch is that it will increase glutamate here. So, so this slide is two molecules that go up and down. One is glutamate going up in the morning, which helps you get up and get to speed and go. And the other is GABA that comes up in the evening, which is needed for sleep. So here's another combination of molecules that are important in this wake sleep cycle. And I'll say what their relationship is in a minute. But the problem with taking GABA supplements is they tend to act like hitting the brake and the accelerator at the same time, and you end up feeling badly if you're doing that in order to sleep. And if you get too much glutamate during the day and not enough GABA to bring it down when it gets to be evening, then that's one of the symptoms of PTSD. So we'll, as I say, come back to this in the context of melatonin in a minute. Okay, so here is the comment I made before about the biochemical oscillator. And I've got this little picture. This is this SCN, this little piece of the brain that's interpreting the light and the dark coming in. And from that part of the brain comes signals down here, a couple of steps. And if the orange side is GABA, and out the blue side over here is glutamate. So these two chemicals I just mentioned are being produced, and the melatonin interaction is up above at the SCN level. So over here from the GABA section, we have the neurons promoting sleep. And over on the other side, with the glutamate, we have a whole big interplay that's controlling chemicals that are related to actually functioning during the day. And so the melatonin is really the super control over those two chemicals that we talked about, again, in the context of the Eon patch previously. So while we're talking about oscillating, I will just throw in the reference to brain waves, because I think most people have heard of delta sleep, that you need to go into deep sleep. It's also called a non-rapid eye movement. And the more modern term seems to be slow wave sleep, because you can see the wave is nice and long here. And this is what you really need for healing, as opposed to gamma, which is a little bit too fragmented and stressed. I mean, unless you're really running from the tiger. Beta is that's for those of you who have, your brain got stuck on analyzing things and you can't turn it off. You go over the same menu over and over again, then you're stuck in beta. Alpha is alert awareness. So you're calm, you're cool, you're collected. If you're going to take an exam, you want to be in alpha. And theta is between that and delta. So again, thinking of things from the electrical point of view, and it's interesting to try and put the electrical point of view together with the chemical review. I mean, it's not at all easy. But it's a challenge when it says, okay, so how do these two things go together? But there are lots of things to learn yet. So the problem with supplements, if taking melatonin, is that even though they're hyped a lot, the effects that have been reported are of low strength, and most of the guidelines are based on narrative reviews, and there's few randomized controlled clinical trials. Well, I think we can probably say that about a lot of things, but That's what's listed. There are also side effects, and we don't have side effects with the patches. So that is a reason to take a patch instead of a pill. Then there are other drugs you can take for sleep, including a group of drugs that work by blocking the activity of the nerves in the brain and in the central nervous system. And they interfere with sleep, even though you're taking them for sleepiness. There's antidepressive drugs, and they have undesirable effects when they're used to treat insomnia as opposed to in treat depression. And then if you're taking these drugs for sleep, you can have, again, negative side effects. So if your goal is sleeping, sleepy nights is definitely a good thing to do. Now, I'm probably running long on time. So all I want to say here is that that melatonin itself does things other than everything we just talked about in the connection with sleep. So it's involved in the vascular system, metabolism, cancer, immunity. It's involved in a lot of things, and I don't know exactly how well it's studied in all of those things, but we're just seeing part of the story on melatonin, and in particular, it's involved in signaling the cells to repair and to protect themselves from UV radiation. I know UV radiation is one of the things that David Schmidt often talks about, that, you know, we're going around now with 5G like we're got our head in a microwave, I think is the way he put it. So this is definitely needed. It activates the death genes. They're the ones that go around and find all the, you know, things that are damaged, or if they're activated, then the process of cleaning up damaged and old materials in your body goes to work. It will activate the survival of genes in other circumstances where you want them to survive. It protects against oxidative stress and has other antioxidant properties. So now we're going to turn to so the research that's actually been done on the silent night patches, and there's only 2 studies. So and don't look at that 58 because we only got a few more slides to do for getting tired. But there are 2 studies in the Lifewave on the Lifewave website. One's by Norman Shealy in 2011, and one by, that I quoted already, from Melinda Connor and her collaborator, Dr. Eckhoff, in 2013. So we'll see, you know, one thing is to know how things would work if they work as proclaimed, and the other is what's actually been shown. Well, I mean, I can skip ahead, and they actually show that melatonin gets increased. So we do know that. But this is some results from Melinda Connor and Eckhoff's paper. And Dr. Connor is quite rigorous. She's got a whole battery of tests that she runs. So there's a large number of tests, which I've summarized here: hormonal, amino acid, neurotransmitter, gas discharge visualization, and then a whole battery of psychological tests. The kind of sad thing is that she's got an N of 5, so a lot of numbers and a few subjects, but there's still some interesting things to take away here. The things that are interesting that I'll say a little bit more about are the things that are highlighted in yellow. So the neurotransmitters, the results from this gas discharge visualization device, heart rate variability, and then some of the psychological test results. Now, so all of the tests are univariate. What's that mean? That means they're only analyzed one item at a time. And if everything was equal, then I know you've probably heard David Schmidt talk about, we look at significance as P being less than 0.05. Well, what's that mean? That means that if there was no difference going on, if there really was no effect, you would expect to get a false positive result. You'd come to a false positive conclusion 5% of the time. Well, you've done, I don't know how many, but say you did 100 tests. I think you did at least 100 different tests. If everything was equal, you would expect to get 5 positive results when there was really nothing going on. What makes the results of this study really exciting is that it's not like random results are positive. The results that are positive are all grouped. I mean, there's lots of tests here that I didn't highlight that showed nothing happening at all. And the things that are happening are in solid clusters. And that's good evidence for something really, really going on. So this is the neurotransmitter information. Here's a little picture of what it looks like for the information, the light, and the little to be going from the end of one cell, one nerve cell to the beginning of another. And I have it in 2 boxes. And the box on the left are all of the molecules that the neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are messengers, remember. So everything in this box was, quote, statistically significant, meaning, 5 out of 100, you would expect 5 out of 100 false positives, but these were significant for all of the things they measured, for most of the things they measured for all the time points, because they're doing this multiple times after patching. And so I put the things that are highlighted in red are not because they're more important, they're because they're things we've talked about in this talk already. So I don't mean to downplay the significance of the ones that we haven't discussed, but we discussed serotonin, which was the precursor of melatonin, and we discussed melatonin itself a lot. We focused on that, and GABA, which is downstream from melatonin there in regulating your circadian rhythm. So all of these things showed up as significant, together with a number of other things. And on the right-hand side, there's another list of neurotransmitters. And this is not to say they're not significant. This says they didn't find a significant change so they're going out to 7 days. And you can see here, if you look down, the non-significance, the non-significant findings end at day 4. So that means they were significant for 5, 6, 7. So this is like all of the neurotransmitters that she studied, and to have them all pop up with significant results is really impressive with a small sample size. It means you kind of had to hit the bullseye with every single subject. This is the gas discharge visualization. Now there's a couple slides here, and they're not as strong as, the results are not as strong as with the neurotransmitters. But I'll just mention them because they're suggestive, and because the sample size was so slow that they really could be, seriously doing something if one had a little bit more information. So just to tell you, if you haven't heard it before, the gas discharge visualization, they've got this little plate, and you put your hand on it, and it's got it's a gold plate because that is more sensitive to the electrical charge of your hand. And this little picture here shows what it looks like around a couple of your fingers. And so if the gas discharge looks like this around one finger, that's nice and normal. But if it looks all scattered and only halfway and jagged and not symmetric, then that is not good. And and then there's this whole computer system for mapping that to organs in your body, et cetera, et cetera. The little picture here of the leaf, this is what the gas discharge looks like if you're if a nice healthy leaf. It is by gas. Most of the gas they're talking about is just water, evaporating, which your body does in its natural as part of natural you're sweating when you just perspire. And of course, there could be other discharges that are coming out as well, as this big blob on my cheek would attest. So the other one that was suggestive is heart rate variability, and it was consistent with the beginnings of down-regulating stress parameters. Again, it would be really nice to have larger studies, which of course are very expensive, and the psychological tests were consistent with feeling better. So now I just got 2 slides and then we're finished. Norman Shealy, who well, is very famous in some communities. If you haven't heard of him, he's worth looking up. So he did a study with 20 subjects, and all of his subjects suffered from insomnia. And he asked them to start with the liver 3 site for acupuncture site for placing the patch. And then if it didn't work, he asked them to cycle through these others. And as soon as they got something that they thought was good, they'd stop and then use that patch site for the rest of the study. And they patched for 30 days at night and then completed this long list of questionnaires. So it was all, answered questions, but it's all with psychologically established testing for the purpose of evaluating sleep. And the results of his study were 80% of the participants improved their quality of sleep, 88% improved the length of sleep according to one test, and 72% improved the length of sleep based on a different test. And of those that came into the study, 9 of them were clinically depressed, and 7 of the 9 reduced their depression on that score. So that's pretty cool. I have some references. I have a disclaimer. The Lifewave patches are not intending to cure any disease, but they are trying to help your body give you a good night's sleep. And with that, I will thank you for joining me on this discovery journey. And I hope we can all heal while we learn. And you can find out more about me and some of the things that I've learned. And I have some of my talks on my website, like patchscience.com. And I think all of the PowerPoint presentations are there. And I'm updating them as I give new talks, or trying to get them updated. So with that, I can take a question or two if you're not totally worn out. I see there's some things in the chat. And then when we're finished, David would, when we're finished, those of you who want to leave can leave, and John would like to talk a little bit about the business for anyone that's interested in that. So why don't I go to the chat and stop sharing. Well, let me pursue what's in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. Wonderful. I have one question here from Rhonda. She says, so what does 5G do to the brain waves?
I have not looked that up yet. That's a good question. What does it do to the brain waves? Good question. I mean, I have not really studied 5G, except I, paid attention to what David says. Well, for that it's very concerning. But I think he intends a product on it particularly. I think I wouldn't be surprised. We heard earlier today that he has a couple that are in the mill to come out, and he's been seriously concerned about the seriously concerned about it, not just the brain waves. I think, you know, the whole body, the organs, et cetera, et cetera. So I have not researched it, but if it looks like he's coming out with a patch, I will. I mean, we worked with when we have either built or remodeled 3 houses and worked with a feng shui expert who, you know, back in the 90s was saying, don't use a microwave. And so now he's saying, you know, he's given up on that because everybody's using a microwave, whether he says it or not. And then David comes along and it says it's like, you know, there was some patch that Dave, I did hear, there was some patch that they used to have that was for radiation protection. And I can't remember the talk that David was giving when he talked about that, but somebody asked him, why did you take it off the market? And he was saying because that was, you know, that it was effective when you had, you know, like your phone hooked to your, you just had one source, but now it's like all around and you can't get out of it. And there needed to be a different solution. And so I think he's going to come up with something that will surprise us all. And I'll put looking that up on the list of things to do. So.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. So the next question we have from Zariah, the diverse patches have different frequencies. And if one is listening to a frequency that is 528 Hertz, does it affect the patch?
So say the first part of that again.
Yeah, do the device, I guess the different patches
have different frequencies, yes, that's true.
And if one is listening to a frequency that is 528 Hertz, for example, does it affect the patch?
So I think not. I mean, I can't say for sure. I mean, these are all questions that would be nice to hear David comment on, but you know, that when I first was imagining the patch reflecting the frequency like it was like a mirror, it's going over and bouncing off, then I was trying to imagine how do they pull out just the frequencies they want to send back and not just send back what you sent out. Right. And my mind was trying to get around that image. And then I you know, learned more about crystals and the fact that they store energy, and it all comes down to the positive and negative charges. Well, so it was really this patch where we have this information that the crystal, unless I'm misinterpreting what Melinda Connor said, the crystal is made of the homeopathic solutions. So it's the wavelength. So if I'm correct, it's the wavelength of those things in the patch that's going to get reflected back. And our body that's sending out a signal is simply being used as an energy source. And I've heard David talk about that some ways too. He talks about it being the engine that runs the system. And so I think that it does not, I think what we're sending out is not important. It's that's going to be taken and then used to send back to us what is intended.
Okay, great. So Rhonda asked, since this is being recorded, will those of us who were late and accessing the meeting have an opportunity to see the whole video at another time? And I just put yes, it's going to be Nancy, we record it and then she has it, she's putting it on YouTube, but also on her website at lightpatchscience.com.
So it'll probably take, I don't know, may take a week to get that done because we're not very fast, but we're not. But there is a Silent Night talk there already, and this will replace that one. And for the one that I did last year, I just discovered this homeopathic connection like the day before I gave the talk. So that really didn't get in. So this talk is from a totally different point of view. And when I gave that talk too, I had not heard David say that. I think it was that it was intended to increase melatonin. Certainly we've seen that it does increase melatonin, and I really should try and find out whether, because if it's what he intends, it means that's how he constructed the crystal. If it's a result, then it's a general result of all of those solutions, which that could be, it could be one of many, many things. So I don't know whether it really was the focus of the patch or not. And I didn't even know to look to focus on melatonin in the last talk. I focused on all the things related to sleep that I could look at. So anyway.
This is a great question. Is gas discharge visualization the same thing as an aura? Like, I guess talking about the energy field.
No, it's not. It's literally measuring essentially the water vapor. It is the modern extension of Kirlian photography, done with fancier computer system, more precise measures or whatever. But they're literally so as I said, it's done with the hand on the plate, and then the extrapolation that they do to how well different organs are working is from I've never seen anybody say this exactly, but looking at the figures that they go, it's like a reflexology chart, that from the way each of your fingers is respirating,
right?
Your skin needs to breathe. The way it's respirating, then they use to interpret how the different organs are performing that are associated with that reflexology chart.
Right. And we also
and this guy that's done that machine. So it's a Russian. I talk about him, I think, in the overview. I talk about him in some other talk, but he is very active right now. I mean, this is current. His machine is, well, I don't know, it's probably 20 years old or something, and it's used. It's got medical device approvals in Europe and not in the United States. And according to Dr. Connor's write-up on that, it's not approved in the United States for like medical diagnosing and stuff, because it kind of relates to the because it doesn't talk about things in terms of organs. It talks about them in terms of your fingers.
Yeah. Well, these are great questions. Let's take one more. Are there patches for the endocrine system?
Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to get this wrong, but I think Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nirvana is definitely related to the hormone system, and I was actually going to do the Nirvana patch next. So my talks here are Fridays, the first Friday and the third Friday of the month at 6 o'clock, and the next one will be the Nirvana patch.
Great. I hope everybody can make that one. I'm really interested. I've been using the Nirvana patch for quite a while now, and I really feel that it's one of the less talked about patches, but it has some really deep things about it. So really looking forward to Nancy's webinar on that. So with that,
let me stop sharing. I didn't.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay, thanks everybody. Anybody want to unmute? Otherwise, I'm going to respect everybody's time. If anybody does want to stay on, if they have some questions that they'd like to ask me about kind of the, whatever you want to call it, the business side or the affiliate side of Lifewave, then please stay on. Otherwise, thank you very much. You've been a great audience.
Thank you all.
Put the Nirvana patch?
What about it?
Where should we put the Nirvana patch for the endocrine system?
Oh, Well, I mean, I use the third, I usually do it at night and put it on the third eye or the back of my neck or, I mean, those are kind of my standard parts just because I'm too lazy to learn more about the acupuncture system. And those are good sites. But I think I heard David say that it works through the brain, which of course the signals for all these other things go through the brain. And when he's talked, so a lot of the patches you can wear, you know, if they're system wide, you patch, you know, the back of the neck or under the belly, etc., or down on your legs. You know, you can move them around, but the ones like carnosine, and I believe Nirvana too, I try to keep it close to my head.
Okay.
And I will verify that one way or another, try to before the talk on the next talk.
I found a great book that all the acupuncture points, and the thing that I learned is the bladder meridian has an associated target for almost everything, and that's why the way they're telling you to place the patches, they're trying to hit the most.
Well, right, that's where that SP6.
Example, you said to put on the right liver 3. So the right liver 3 is right here, down on the ankle.
Right.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And there's other I mean, he uses that spot. That spot shows up in a number of the patch placement
But
positions.
Right, but I'm just now starting to learn a little bit about acupuncture points and meridians, so it's.
Oh, good. Well, come to the talks and you can contribute that because
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Rhonda. That's good. This is all fascinating.
I thought I'd avoid having to learn about that. And now that I'm interested in this, I'm going, well, I guess I
There you go. Yeah.
need to do it.
The most effective place to put the patch. And according to that, it tells us, because I found out that on a meridian, there'll be one point that's kind of like, if you can hit that point, it goes both ways,
Gotcha.
the whole meridian.
Uh-huh.
Those are associated points that are important. And they go in this book and they tell on every
So
meridian.
that was called acupuncture points, and where
At Amazon, and it's acupuncture points
handbook.
patient's guide.
Mhm. Yeah, great.
Do you have a first author there?
ISBN if you want it. I'm trying to see if I'm.
Oh, just give me the author. There must be somebody who wrote it, the first name.
Oh, the author is Bleeker, Deborah Bleeker.
B. Okay.
Bleaker.
Bleecker.
Oh, CKER. Okay.
Okay.
Deborah.
Yeah, I can find it.
It's $17 on Amazon.
Okay.
Great. Thanks for contributing that.
Sounds like a bargain.
Well, it is, and it gives an idea where to put these patches. And
Yeah, because I've looked a lot online at the pictures, and you know, either they're too
General.
crude, you know, or they're too busy, and you know, it's hard to.
will actually explain. For example, on the bladder, I was shocked. I mean, this is all new to me. She talks about the lung associated point is bladder 13, bladder 15 treats the heart. Then she goes down. This is just on the bladder. It does more than any other meridian, but they've got a lung associated, the pericardium, and she gives the symptoms of what's, you know, not, and what it does. Then you have all these other meridians and they have one major point. So you can very quickly find it. And then I just started using the patches. So I haven't really done very much of this, but I did put a glutathione yesterday patch on the liver meridian down in the foot.
Uh-huh. Oh, uh-huh.
Hours. I took it off because I started getting, my eyes started hurting.
Oh, detox is going.
Detox.
Yeah.
Fast. So I took it off, and but I knew that.
So keep doing it though, just don't do it for so long because detox is good.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So you're using the glutathione and what else?
Well, I'm doing X39, X49. I have Nirvana, which I haven't tried yet, but I'm going to after hearing you. And I have glutathione patches. So, and I'm working with Dr. Sunny because she had warned me to be very careful with the glutathione. She was concerned about me using them.
Yeah, and by the way, Don's on here too. He just ordered some patches, and I think it's a certain amount, but he ordered and he got a free glutathione patch. So they have these promotions also that are great. So with his original order, they added the glutathione patch to his order. So you might want to notice that too. If it pops up, it'll just kind of, when you make your order, it'll say you're going to also receive.
I think that, I don't know if that promotion's still up because I got a promotion on Alavita
Maybe
right
they
now.
change it. They change it. They do change it quite frequently. But yeah,
For Mother's Day, the Alavita one goes away on Sunday. So if you're interested.
Oh yeah, Mother's Day. That's right.
What does Alavita do?
Well, so, it's interesting, they decide what they're going to use to promote the patch. And then the patch always does more than what they decide to. So it's being sold as sort of a beauty product, de-wrinkle you. But what it does is it works on your, the epithelial cells. So it is working on making not only your skin healthy, but your epithelial cells line all your cardiovascular system, they line all your organs, so it's a whole lot more than just taking wrinkles away.
Wow, exciting.
So we get that one.
And David Schmidt gave a talk on Alavita yesterday, right? Wednesday. So that will be online soon.
So do we find that on YouTube or does he have a website?
I would suggest that also that everybody, if you aren't getting regular newsletters from Lifewave, because sometimes when we enroll, we don't check that box. You can just call the company, call that 866 number and say, please put me on your email list with this email so that you'll always get those newsletters, and they'll always have the promotions. They'll have the latest.
They've gotten now to sending out one a month,
right.
And then one newsletter a month.
Right. Yeah, that's very good.
Thank you.
Okay, it's a book on
Okay, well, thanks. So
okay, Zariah, is the book on acupuncture points detailing over 2,000 points? I don't know. Do you have an answer for that, Rhonda?
100 points.
How many?
It says over 400.
Over 400. Okay, Zariah,
Okay.
over 400. Thank you for that question.
It will take the meridians and show you, first of all, it'll show all the meridians in that. Let me find one. Let's see.
well, it's pretty overwhelming
But this is
I know. I had acupuncture when I dislocated my knee, and the surgeon said I had to have an operation. This is when I was 21 years old. That was a long time ago. And I knew a woman who was from China that had been educated with acupuncture. And she gave me one treatment, and I did not have to have an operation. So I totally became alternative.
Yeah, no, I'm all for alternative. I have lots of acupuncture with wonderful results. I just didn't want to learn it myself, and now I do.
I know, it's discouraging. There's over 2,000.
Well, they do 400 for laymen. So they'll do the main points, like this is the gallbladder.
Yeah, that's what you need, is something that focuses, because we don't
Yeah.
need, because the patches don't have to go on. I don't think they have to be as specific as
on the meridian.
Right.
I think
well, or as with acupuncture even. As you say, you need to know the main points to put them on.
you just don't need, this is for a layperson. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, and you don't even, with the patches, you don't even need that. Most of them, they're going to work whether, the comment I read was,
They work on light. It works with light.
Right, it's
Apparently.
just a matter of whether it's working locally or, as I say, the meridian system's like the highway system for getting it through your body. But it doesn't mean it doesn't, but you've also got your whole there's a connective tissue that sends this stuff around too. That was at the beginning of the talk. So there's, so it helps. There's, I just figure be consistent. I mean, be consistent in keeping up with putting them on. And
I don't have mine yet. I'm waiting.
Patiently waiting. Anxiously waiting. Yeah.
Yes, I'm anxiously waiting.
Well, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a lot.
I had an experience with one, and I wore it on the back on C7, and I went outside in the sun, and I hadn't slept all night because of someone wanted to do laundry all night and the dog was barking. It was one of those things. And it made me feel like I had slept. Now that's pretty amazing. And I had exposed it to the sun when I was outside for a half an hour. Mm-hmm. And I'm not on any medication at all for my age.
So which patch was this?
The X39.
X39, okay.
Yeah, X39 does so much. It's really kind of, sometimes it's hard for people. They see all the patches, which one should I start with first? And I think really the X39 is the one that everybody should start with. Unless if they're experiencing a lot of pain, somewhere in the body, then the Lifewave patches, they can work quite quickly. But yeah, X39 and actually now the addition of X49, those are really, really important patches to start to experience, results. Sometimes it happens right away, and sometimes it's
it did. It happened right. Well, within a half an hour of my being in the sun.
Is there
and I was exposing it to the sun too. I was actually going like this, and I had my hair down. Because you said it worked on light, and I went, okay, there's direct sunlight.
Right.
I was
charging up that crystal.
Is there a patch for blood sugar?
There is. Well, there's a patch. I've looked at SP6. That's. I mean, they advertise it again for weight loss, but it is. We have to look at that. There's another. But let's see. This patch. The Silent Night patch, there was on one of the slides that I probably went to. I didn't want to get into it, so I didn't. The one where I didn't get into it, where it said these are the things that it can affect. Diabetes and food regulation is part of what is affected by melatonin. Okay. So
right.
Do they have any kind of literature where they tell you this patch is I know that they can't claim healing, but do they have like a chart or something that you can go by? I mean, how?
No, they're very careful not to try and indicate anything that has to do with disease. So it's just real clear.
So how does a person then know what to buy or what to try? I mean, or
you talk to people like we're doing.
Yeah, I think this is good, is to have these webinars. And also there's a science section on the website. So that's in your back office, and you can.
But it's really a lot. I mean, I've been going through it now for a year and a half pretty intensely. It's hard to work through.
Right. But if you can narrow it down to, the main points like Nancy covered today, then you can get a pretty good idea. And then you just basically, it's just trying it. It's trying it, see if it works, and nice thing is that.
But if you can describe symptoms, like just was done with the food management, chances are one of us or somebody that's been studying the patches can guide you to one. And that's the thing about the X39 and the X49 is, David keeps trying to get more, I'd say, elemental, because, if you're stimulating the production of stem cells, then your body's going to use it for whatever it thinks your body needs most.
Right.
Yeah.
And with the X49, it's more the cardiovascular system, but that covers a lot of territory in terms of making your body more able to heal itself.
Okay, can I ask you then, for someone that has brain fog and gets very forgetful because of emotional stress, and what would be the best patch for that? I mean, can you answer something like that? I mean,
Well,
it's
legally, no, but we do know that carnosine is a very small molecule that can cross the blood-brain barrier.
Right. Just going to mention that. Yeah.
I mean, not all of the molecules produced can cross the blood-brain barrier, but melatonin is produced in the brain, and carnosine
Crosses over.
and carnosine does work on the nervous system. So then you just have to try it. I mean, I don't.
okay, so I have to try what? Which
Carnosine or-
Carnosine. I would recommend the
Carnosine.
carnosine patch for that.
I would try the carnosine.
Carnosine patch.
And a good place to put it too is right here. It's like in your sternum. I heard David Schmidt talk about that. And at night, it's very effective at nighttime.
Is it L-carnosine that you're talking about?
Well, sometimes you see the L in front of it, and that, so when they put an L in front of things like carnosine and dopamine and stuff, that's just telling you how the molecules twist itself up. So yes, L-carnosine is the same as carnosine. It's just, kind of whether it's bent to the right or bent to the left.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Can we use,
So what you're saying is that there is a patch called carnosine, right?
Yes.
I'm just trying to wrap my brain around this, because it's all
Yes.
French to me what you guys are talking about.
Oh, okay.
So there is a patch called carnosine that might be helpful for the brain.
Well,
Right.
it'll be helpful,
Right.
whether it's helpful for brain fog or not, I don't know. But it will help repair the brain. I mean, you can't say whether it's going to help specifically.
Is there any other patch that will help the brain?
Well, the X39.
The X39 is for stem
Okay,
cells.
well, that one, I'm getting that one. I'm getting that sort of comes, that's part of
Yeah.
the initial purchase, right? The X39 or whatever it's called, and the X49, right?
Right.
That's
right.
part of yeah. Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. We'll see how it goes.
So the brain's an interesting thing. I mean, it always comes down to what is the actual problem that one's having. And, brain fog, so one has to one thing that can be causing problems in the brain is if in fact your blood supply is compromised to the brain. And that is, that can be a structural problem.
Okay.
I mean, with my diving board accident, I was to the point where I didn't know people I had known for 20 years, and I couldn't read. I went for months and months without being able to read anything. I mean, and I describe it as I lost my brain and I got it back again.
it's wonderful.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Coming back was a great experience.
How did you get your brain back?
Well, so cranial sacral, so for me, it was definitely it was a head injury. And cranial sacral therapy is what saved my life to start with. And then I did cranial sacral therapy, acupuncture, and then by this time, I mean, I was a real mess in terms of being contorted and twisted and everything. So massage therapy. And then everything was so good that I just started trying everything out there I could find. And you probably can't mention an alternative therapy I haven't tried. And I, trained in some things because I thought they were interesting enough to learn. And then, so one of the things David says in one of his talks is that you can heal, it helps to be in like a meditative mind, and it helps to pay attention to your body, because your body has to do the healing, and it wants to feel appreciated, and it wants to feel, it's a joint effort. So I look at my body as a community. We are a collection of conscious cells, and my job is to tell my body that it's all right to do what it thinks is best, and that I trust it, and then to get out of the way, and not try to analyze it all. And so that, because you can do a lot of things that are good for healing, but then you shut them down mentally. You tell your body, I don't believe this, or, I really don't want to go there, because, so there are lots of ways to shut off the healing process. You have to trust your body. But what David was saying, which I agree with completely, I spent a lot of time meditating. I mean, I got brainwave training tapes. I got myself, so I was in Delta most of the time. And the nice thing is about these patches and the X39 is that you don't have to work that hard. I mean, your body opens up, as long as you're not then turning around and shutting it down, but your body opens up in a way that that it would take a Herculean effort to duplicate through meditation and internal mind work.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I put in an order yesterday, so day before yesterday. So I'm getting the X49, the X39, and then two other things. I don't know. So I don't know. Try and see what happens.
Right.
So what other meetings like this have you been to before? To talk to people?
This is about the third, or it's one when I'm connected with Rhonda, right? So whatever she introduced me to. Who did you introduce me to, Rhonda?
Dr. Sunny.
Dr. Sunny. Yeah, and then this gentleman that's on here, I was listening to him and his talk yesterday. And that's it.
So I would suggest that you keep going to talks, because you can ask different people the questions you're asking me, and it will keep you learning things. And that's really, and you can share your experiences too,
right.
And get the feedback on, I tried this, it did work, it didn't work, whatever.
Yeah, it's just wonderful hearing people's different experiences. Since I've been mostly tuning in every day to David Jumper's 8 a.m. one, right, Don? We have so many people in there, and they have all these incredible.
We're going to build that, John. We're going to build it, and we'll increase it. It's just starting. It's getting better and better every day. David's calls in the morning, and I'm trying to work with them to get the recordings up on those too, so people that can't make the for me it's 9 a.m. They can watch the recording, and we're going to clip the recording so that the good parts are people can watch the highlights basically. So we'll get that going because those calls are really cool to be on. There's always good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You've
And
been
thanks guys for doing this. Nancy, that was amazing.
Thanks for
Nancy,
coming. Appreciate it.
can you just go, I don't want to keep going because I know we've gone over, but can you go over the sleep cycle again and the circadian rhythm? So is this just, what's the best way to get the full night's sleep? I thought you mentioned you want to get to, you want to go to sleep before the light goes, before it gets dark. Is that what you said, or did I miss it?
No.
Where
Well, I said I do here in the Northwest because it doesn't get dark till 10 o'clock at night. In another 2
Okay.
months, it won't be dark before 10 o'clock at night. And then
Right,
it'll be light at 4 in the morning. So
Right.
I have to arrange it so that I can go to sleep, so that I can get sleep more than the light cycle, which means close the windows, put on eye patches, do something to put the blankets over your head, whatever,
Right.
get it
Just
dark.
Make it dark. Yeah, that's what I do.
But if you're
And I
down near the equator, if you're where it's 8 hours,
Right.
you're a lot further south. And so, you can go more naturally with the light.
Right. So just sleep when it's dark, right?
You could, yeah, but it doesn't work up here.
Yeah. Because I know that even like lights from a computer or some other little LEDs are you still got light in the room, So.
Are you kidding? I have a salt lamp in my bedroom. You mean I shouldn't have a lamp in my bedroom because it gives out, an orangey kind of a light?
Yeah, no, I mean,
I
unless you physically need it to go to the bathroom, you can't do without it. You don't want the light on.
Yeah, I turn mine off.
They've actually done studies that if you have to be asleep 6 hours before the pineal gland will secrete melatonin. And they've gone in and taken a pin light and shown it on the back of somebody's leg, and it stops the production. So you need to be sound asleep for at least 6 hours for that to be secreted. And any light at all, even I have tape over my fire alarms to cover up even that little.
Right. Me too.
Yeah.
Over the internet thing.
Well,
Yeah.
I have the internet in the bedroom. I mean,
Oh, I've got one of those eye things like you get.
I wear one of those sometimes too.
The airplanes,
Oh,
but I
so
put
basically
energy
it's
patches
not-
on them.
I didn't hear you, Nancy. What?
I put energy patches on them, and they really are soothing to the eyes.
So which energy patches?
The energy enhancer patch.
Oh, I don't know about that one yet. Okay, energy enhancer.
I mean, again, they sell it so that you can go work out at the gym and pump more iron or something. But it's an interesting patch in that what energy is not adrenaline, it's ATP. And so it's helping whatever your cells need to do. And at night, your cells need to repair, and it's soothing at night. It's not jarring anytime. It's nothing like adrenaline. I mean, it just makes you feel good.
You.
Right. And
ATP patches.
I've also had amazing sleep with the X39 patches. It's unbelievable. Like I've always slept really well my whole life. I never have a problem falling asleep. That's not an issue. But waking up tired after 8 hours of sleep or 10 hours of sleep, that's crazy. That doesn't happen anymore after using the X39. It's amazing that I wake up energized. And that's the way it should be, I think.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
Me too. Same experience, Don.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning or something and then get up. I know when I was much younger, I would do that. I would get up and work for a few hours and then go back to bed.
Yeah, I do that.
Well, you got to be careful because that 3 to 5 o'clock in the morning time is the time your liver is the most productive. So if
Okay.
I do wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning because my husband got up or something, whatever, I lie in bed with my eyes shut. It's a time for me and my body to do whatever, but I do not get out of bed.
Okay,
Mhm.
I won't.
Good point.
And just one more quick question is, we could talk about this stuff all night. But what about testosterone, Nancy, because a customer asked me that specifically, increasing testosterone.
I have to refresh my memory. I have seen it.
Okay, me too. I've seen it too. I was wondering if you knew because.
Yeah,
told her
so we're talking about foggy memory. I mean, I put together a talk, but I don't necessarily remember what I said.
Not to remember.
I got that specific question, so I have to do some research and find out now if we can.
Yeah, if I,
Do you drink enough water?
talking to
Yeah,
me.
it's not for me. So the specific question was, do one of the patches raise testosterone levels?
Well, let's look at the Nirvana patch when I do that, because I know that it works with,
Yeah, and I remember hearing something, and I remember seeing a video on that specifically.
David's talked about that. It was like, it was real important to him.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. I just can't remember where or what it was, so.
Yeah. He went
Anyway,
on and on about testosterone in one of them.
He did.
So I think people tonight, I think what's best, we had mentioned that maybe after this webinar to maybe have, if anybody's interested to stay on, but I think because of the time.
Yeah, it's gone a long time. We should
Yeah,
probably call it off.
Probably call
Yes.
it off, but I would like to, to field some questions. I also have my good friend and mentor, Eddie, on tonight, who really he's been with Lifewave since the very beginning. And I think everybody would have a very rich experience listening what his experience for 17, 18 years were. So we're going to definitely do that. Because it's not just about the business side, it's really about the company and somebody's experience with the company that long. So does that sound good for everybody to to explore some of that? That would be great.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Glad to see you.
Really,
Glad to-
thank you so much for
Thanks for
coming.
coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. You've been great. Great questions. Thanks, Don, for coming tonight.
Yeah.
Two Dons. We got two Dons. We got my good friend.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Thank
Oh, yeah, thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
Bye.
Chris. Hey, guys. Have a wonderful evening and weekend and Mother's Day.
Bye.
Hey,
Happy Mother's
Bye.
Day, ladies.
Bye, Nancy.
you can shut us down, John.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1.